It's Dean Miller.
Oh, and he is going right to the knee.
It's Dean Miller.
Oh, and he is going right to the knee.
It's Dean Miller.
Oh, and he is going right to the knee.
This just in from the NFL. The Browns expected to start Shedeur Sanders at quarterback in their preseason opener against the Panthers, according to Cleveland.com. It's more out of necessity than anything. That's because most of their quarterbacks are hurt right now. Even Sanders has missed some time with a sore shoulder. He's been taking fourth-string reps at training camp, but Kenny Pickett and Dillon Gabriel have hamstring injuries, and Cleveland doesn't want to play 40-year-old Joe Flacco, who is likely going to be their starter when the season begins. So Sanders is reportedly going to get the nod to start on Friday night.
I'm not done yet. Shedeur Sanders makes Dillon Gabriel's life harder with Browns injury update. In the scorching heat of Berea, Ohio, where NFL dreams are forged in sweat and uncertainty, the Cleveland Browns quarterback battle is no longer just a competition. It's a collision course. And as the summer unfolds, one name keeps rising through the smog of speculation and scrutiny: Shedeur Sanders. Fresh off an injury scare and weeks of drama surrounding his position on the depth chart, Sanders has now thrown the first major wrench into the Browns' QB plan. Not with words, but with precision passes, ruthless determination, and the misfortune of a teammate's injury. This isn't just a training camp update. It's the beginning of a seismic shift. The return of the prodigy. On August 4th, the Browns' rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders officially returned to practice after battling arm soreness that sidelined him during a crucial week of team drills. While others took the field mechanically, Sanders arrived like a man possessed. Helmet buckled, jersey drenched in effort, and eyes deadlocked on the only thing that matters: the starting job. During an intense practice session days earlier, he had already turned heads by going a flawless 9-for-9 with 2 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. The 144th overall pick didn't just perform, he commanded. Fans, coaches, and perhaps most notably, Browns owner Jimmy Haslam watched in awe as Sanders carved up the defense with surgical precision. But Monday wasn't just about picking up where he left off. It was about staking a claim. And the one person who felt it the most wasn't on the highlight reel. It was Dillon Gabriel. Gabriel's pain, Sanders' gain. For Dillon Gabriel, the narrative is flipping from dark horse to under pressure. Once considered a real contender to leapfrog into QB2 territory, the Oregon product has found himself on the wrong end of nearly every measuring stick. On Friday, August 1st, Gabriel was erratic and off-kilter, going a dismal 3 of 14 in team drills. One day later, with Shedeur sidelined, The door was wide open for Gabriel to capitalize. Instead, he managed just 1 of 6, per the Athletics' Zach Jackson. If there was ever a golden opportunity for Gabriel to separate himself, that was it. And it vanished like a misread throw into double coverage. To make matters worse, his decision-making under pressure has become a recurring red flag. In Saturday's red zone drills, he delivered a crushing interception to defensive back Cameron Mitchell. No touchdowns, no hero moment, just another black mark under the watchful eyes of the Browns' top brass. Now, with Sanders back and reclaiming reps, Gabriel's time to impress may be running out entirely. The rookie who refused to stay down. For Shedeur Sanders, this isn't just about proving himself to the Browns' coaching staff. It's about defying the perception that followed him into the NFL. Falling to the 5th round in the 2025 NFL Draft was, for many, an injustice. The former Colorado superstar, who shattered records and earned the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award, entered the league with a chip on his shoulder, and he's sharpening it at every practice. Despite his arm soreness that had him held out of practice on August 2nd, Sanders never disengaged. He observed every drill, analyzed every play, and returned to the field ready to make up for lost time. On the morning of his return, he spoke quietly but confidently. "We took it back 100% today." And that 100% showed. His throws were crisp, his reads were quicker, his huddle presence, commanding. This wasn't just a player returning from a minor setback. It was a quarterback declaring he's here to stay. Kenny Pickett, the forgotten threat or future starter. Amid the Sanders-Gabriel firestorm, Kenny Pickett lurks as an experienced alternative with a comeback mindset of his own. After missing 3 consecutive practices due to a hamstring injury, Pickett finally confirmed the diagnosis, and he's not planning to sit back quietly. "I'm 100% in," Pickett said after being cleared for light work. "It's frustrating, but I'm turning the page and getting ready to come back stronger." This is no ordinary training camp for Pickett. Once the face of Pittsburgh's post-Roethlisberger era, his NFL journey has taken an unexpected detour. Traded to Philadelphia, then landing in Cleveland, Pickett is now staring down the barrel of what might be his last true shot at a starting role. Behind him, Joe Flacco, the 40-year-old former Super Bowl MVP with 191 career starts, and the trust of Stefanski after last season's comeback. Ahead of him, a fierce storm of hungry rookies who don't care what Pickett once was. They care what he can't do now. Kevin Stefanski's calculated gamble. Head coach Kevin Stefanski has played the long game with his quarterbacks. He's refused to name a clear backup to Flacco and insists reps will be distributed based on merit. But merit, like trust, is fragile in the NFL. Asked about Pickett's situation, Stefanski didn't blink. He's had a good amount of NFL exposure. You don't want anybody missing time, but he's done a nice job of staying engaged. But with 2 joint practices looming against the Carolina Panthers and a preseason opener set for August 8th, the clock is ticking. Every mistake will now be magnified, every decision scrutinized. And Stefanski knows better than anyone, this quarterback battle isn't about talent alone. It's about who delivers when the lights get bright. A pressure cooker named Berea. The temperature in Cleveland might be in the 90s, but inside the Browns facility, it's nearing boiling point. Sanders is seizing every second. Gabriel is faltering under the weight of expectations. Pickett is racing to recover. And Flacco, the ever-steady veteran, is quietly stacking days as the default starter. This is no longer about resumes. It's about resilience. For Sanders, that means proving he belongs not just in the NFL, but in Cleveland's long-term vision. For Gabriel, it's survival mode. One more practice like last Friday, and his name might vanish from the QB2 conversation entirely. And for Kenny Pickett, it's now or never. Haslam watches, and the Browns buzz. There's something symbolic about Jimmy Haslam standing on the sideline during these critical reps. This is a man who's seen his franchise cycle through quarterback after quarterback. Some hyped, some hated, all ultimately unfinished stories. But what he saw on July 29th, when Sanders delivered a perfect 9 for 9 with no picks and 2 touchdowns. That looked like something else. That looked like a beginning. The next chapter, Carolina Showdown. With only days left before the Browns square off against the Panthers in a joint practice and the first preseason game, the quarterback competition will be pushed to its most public stage yet. Will Flacco retain his grip on the starting job? Can Pickett shake off his injury and finally shine? Will Sanders leapfrog both rookies and force Stefanski's hand? Or will Dillon Gabriel, written off by many already, summon one last stand? Final thoughts. The shift is coming. The Shedeur Sanders saga in Cleveland is only just beginning. What was once a feel-good story about Coach Prime's son making it to the league is now something far more intense. It's about redemption. It's about rivalry. It's about readiness. And as the sun blazes down on Berea, one thing is clear. Sanders isn't backing down. And for Dillon Gabriel, that might be the worst news of all. Kevin Stefanski worsens Shedeur Sanders' nightmare as Browns bring in emergency QB amid injury crisis. When Shedeur Sanders arrived at Berea for his first NFL training camp, expectations were sky high. The Colorado Phenom, who threw for 4,134 yards and 37 touchdowns just last season, was supposed to spark a quarterback renaissance in Cleveland. Instead, he's watching that dream slip further away, rep by painful rep, under a coach playing a different game altogether. Kevin Stefanski has made his call, and it's not the one the fans were hoping for. As the Cleveland Browns scramble through a brutal storm of quarterback injuries and roster questions, one thing has become painfully clear. Shedeur Sanders isn't just buried on the depth chart. He's being written out of the immediate future. And the move to bring in another quarterback could be the nail in the coffin for his rookie year ambitions. Flacco rises. Sanders slips. Camp insiders have confirmed what many already suspected. Joe Flacco, the 40-year-old Super Bowl 47 MVP, has locked down the starting role in Cleveland. He's consolidated his position, one Browns insider noted. It's hard to argue. Flacco has shown up daily with surgical efficiency, hitting tight windows, leading flawless drives, and absorbing Stefanski's playbook like a second language. While the other QBs are watching from the sidelines, Flacco is executing like it's week 1 against the Steelers. According to ESPN's Adam Schefter, the Browns' official depth chart lists the quarterbacks as Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dillon Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders. The message couldn't be clearer. The rookie who electrified college football just months ago is now staring up from the bottom rung. Injury crisis deepens the divide. As if the depth chart wasn't enough of a gut punch, the Browns' quarterback room has been decimated by injuries. Kenny Pickett is out with a hamstring injury. Dillon Gabriel, the rookie drafted 2 rounds ahead of Sanders, is also sidelined with a hamstring strain. Shedeur Sanders is nursing a sore throwing arm and has been limited in team drills. That leaves Flacco as the only healthy, fully participating quarterback, and it's not even mid-August. Enter emergency reinforcements. Browns sign Tyler "Snoop" Huntley. In a move that may have massive implications for Shedeur's short-term future, the Browns have signed quarterback Tyler "Snoop" Huntley. The 27-year-old, who spent part of last season with Cleveland before being cut, brings experience and familiarity. He filled in for the Dolphins in 5 games last year after Tua Tagovailoa went down, completing 64.7% of his passes for 829 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Now he's back in Cleveland, and his return pushes Shedeur even further down the ladder. From a team perspective, the move makes sense. Stefanski needs healthy arms for joint practices and preseason games. But from Shedeur's point of view, the optics are disastrous. Instead of climbing, he's falling. Instead of reps, he's getting crowded out. And it's all happening under the watchful eye of a head coach who never truly bought in. Haslam's admission adds fuel to the fire. If fans were hoping Shedeur had the backing of ownership, They were sorely mistaken. Browns owner Jimmy Haslam recently admitted something shocking during camp media availability. He never intended to draft Shedeur Sanders. That bombshell ignited outrage across the NFL media world. Shannon Sharpe, on his Nightcap podcast, delivered a scathing reaction. "Why y'all still got the man? If you didn't want him, why'd you take him?" The backlash was swift, and the pressure on Stefanski became deafening. Was this a PR move, a Hail Mary, or a GM decision that Haslam is now distancing himself from? Either way, Shedeur was the one left in the middle, paying the price. Sanders' mentality. Every rep like it's my last. Despite the brutal setbacks, Shedeur Sanders isn't cracking. If anything, he's doubling down. Speaking to local reporters after a recent walkthrough, Sanders emphasized the value of every opportunity, even the few he's getting. "Reps, I think that's pretty much it, just reps," he said. "Every rep, anytime I step on the field, I take it like it could be my last. Because you don't know. There are players that we were just practicing with last week. That's not here anymore." Sanders knows the NFL is a cold business. Sentiment doesn't make rosters. Hype doesn't win snaps. And legacy doesn't guarantee a future. But that doesn't mean he's backing off. Stefanski's slow burn plan. To his credit, Kevin Stefanski hasn't closed the door on Shedeur entirely. In fact, behind the scenes, the Browns head coach is quietly building a developmental plan around the rookie. One focused less on instant results and more on long-term reward. "The plan is a slow burn, not fireworks," said Zach Jackson of The Athletic. "The strategy? Let Shedeur learn the scheme at a cerebral level. Have him absorb the offense, watch veteran decision-making up close, and gradually transition into high-pressure reps during joint practices and preseason games." And while Sanders hasn't played a snap yet, insiders say he's been the most accurate rookie QB in camp, hitting over 71% of his passes in competitive reps. That accuracy hasn't gone unnoticed. But Stefanski's philosophy is clear: no fast-tracking, no exceptions. This is a marathon. $14 million and zero favoritism. Shedeur Sanders entered the league with more than just a resume. He came with a $14 million endorsement portfolio, rare for any rookie, unprecedented for a fifth-round pick. It's a statement of his marketability, his collegiate legacy, and the intrigue surrounding him as the son of Deion coach Prime Sanders. But in Cleveland, that $14 million doesn't get you a single rep. And that may be just the way Shedeur wants it. A locker room divided by legacy. There's no denying the shadow that Deion Sanders casts over his son's journey. Shedeur knows it. Stefanski knows it. The locker room knows it. From the outside looking in, the Sanders name comes with flash, with drama, with expectations that can be both empowering and exhausting. But inside the walls of Berea, none of that matters unless you perform. To take over in the land, Jackson wrote, he has to prove he's more than Deion's son. And that's exactly the pressure Shedeur seems to embrace. He doesn't want Coach Prime in camp. He doesn't want special treatment. He doesn't want applause for almost. He wants the job. Joint practices, preseason pressure, the crucible ahead. Cleveland's upcoming joint practices with the Carolina Panthers will be the first real test of Stefanski's depth chart. Preseason Game 1 is scheduled for August 8th, and all eyes will be on the QB rotation. Will Flacco continue to dominate? Can Huntley climb the ranks? Will Sanders even see the field? Everything hangs in the balance. For Shedeur, it's not just about proving he belongs. It's about proving he's the answer to a franchise that's searched for its quarterback savior since Bernie Kosar. The final word: Stefanski's gamble or Sanders' moment. Kevin Stefanski is playing chess, not checkers. His deliberate approach might turn Sanders into something special, or it might bury him before he ever gets the chance. But here's what we know. The emergency QB move is a short-term necessity. The depth chart may not reflect potential, but rather availability. Stefanski is betting on patience, not panic. And Shedeur Sanders? He's betting on himself. quietly, relentlessly, one rep at a time. Michael Lombardi urges Browns to cut one of Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel after clearing QB1 dilemma for 2025. As the Cleveland Browns head into the 2025 NFL season, their quarterback room looks more like a crowded debate hall than a cohesive unit ready to execute a playbook. The buzz surrounding training camp isn't just about who will start, but about who might not survive the final cuts. With 4 quarterbacks vying for limited reps, veterans Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett, and rookies Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel, the Browns find themselves in an enviable yet dangerous position. Talent is in abundance, but time, patience, and reps are not. Now, former NFL executive and current analyst Michael Lombardi has added fuel to the fire by suggesting something no fan of young quarterback development wants to hear. One of the rookies, Shedeur Sanders or Dillon Gabriel, needs to go. Too many cooks in the QB kitchen. When head coach Kevin Stefanski addressed reporters earlier this summer, he couldn't hide his enthusiasm for the young arms on his roster. Of Shedeur Sanders, the 5th-round pick and 144th overall selection, Stefanski told CBS Sports, "I like everything there is about Shedeur." Sanders, who made headlines last season for bouncing back from being the most sacked player in college football to winning the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year, brings a gritty determination that aligns well with the Browns' underdog identity. On the other end, Dillon Gabriel, the 3rd-round pick out of Oregon, entered the NFL as a record breaker. With 189 career touchdowns, Gabriel now holds the NCAA record for most total touchdowns in college football history. His impressive resume gave the Browns every reason to believe he could be a legitimate contender. But as camp unfolded, the difference between potential and preparation began to show. Michael Lombardi cut one of them. On the August 5th episode of the 92.3 The Fan podcast, Michael Lombardi didn't mince words. He joined hosts Ken Carman and Anthony Lima to discuss the jam-packed quarterback room and offered a stark reality check. "There's only so many reps every day at practice," Lombardi warned. "And how you divide those reps is most critical in terms of how you're building your team. Because if you're giving 20 reps a day to a guy who's not going to ever play for you, you're wasting 20 reps. It's a sentiment that hits especially hard in a league where every snap matters. The Browns can't afford to develop 2 rookie quarterbacks at once. As Lombardi put it bluntly, it's not college." His recommendation was clear: pick one and part ways with the other. Injury concerns add more uncertainty. Injuries have already started reshaping Stefanski's QB plans. Veteran Kenny Pickett has been dealing with a nagging hamstring issue, which has limited his availability. Meanwhile, both Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel have reportedly sustained minor injuries over the course of training camp. Only Joe Flacco, the 2023 Comeback Player of the Year, has remained fully healthy and available. Yet even amidst these challenges, the Browns are trying to balance development with competition, and Stefanski appears to be leaning more protectively toward Gabriel. After a rough minicamp showing from Gabriel's 7 of 18 completions with 1 touchdown, Stefanski defended the rookie. To put the ball out on a play action when it looks like a run, pulls it back and throws the pass. "There's a lot of skill to that," Stefanski said. While Gabriel was struggling, Shedeur Sanders reportedly put up a solid performance. 2 touchdowns on 10 of 12 completions in the same session. But the optics didn't seem to shift in Shedeur's favor, and his battle for first-team reps continues to look like an uphill climb. QB1 decision already leaning Flacco's way. According to a report by Zach Jackson of The Athletic, Joe Flacco is the current favorite to start for the Browns in 2025. Stefanski's trust in the veteran is no surprise. Flacco brings experience, a calm presence, and familiarity with the league's defensive schemes. In a team craving stability after a 3-14 campaign last season, Flacco offers the least risky option. Pickett's injuries, Gabriel's inconsistencies, and Shedeur's lack of reps make Flacco a safe bridge to the future. But what does that future look like? And who is a part of it? That's the central question Lombardi wants Stefanski to answer now. before the team wastes valuable practice time and stretches itself too thin. Shedeur's personal battle beyond football. While battling for a spot on the team, Shedeur Sanders is also carrying a personal burden off the field. His father, famer and Colorado head coach Deion "Coach Prime" Sanders, secretly battled bladder cancer during the offseason, a truth Shedeur only discovered after the fact. Deion chose not to inform his sons during the early stages of his diagnosis and treatment, so as not to distract them from their training and transitions into the professional world. For Shedeur, the revelation came like a gut punch, but he handled it with maturity. In a heartfelt interview with The Athletic, Shedeur said, "Dad, he's one person that he'll handle his. We'll handle what we have to do." It was something that we really didn't need to have a formal conversation about because Deion was like, "You'll need to focus on what you'll need to focus on. Y'all can't sit here and feel sorry for me." That level of discipline, sacrifice, and focus, ironically, may have made Shedeur even more determined not to accept comfort too soon. He has reportedly told his father not to visit him at training camp yet, insisting that he hasn't earned that moment of pride. The patience game, drafting for the future. Lombardi emphasized that fans and media often misunderstand the timeline of a rookie's journey. "What people don't understand about the NFL draft is it's always for your next year's team," he said. "It's never for the current team, so I think ultimately every draft class is for the next year's team." Translation: don't expect either Shedeur Sanders or Dillon Gabriel to be starting in 2025. This season is about learning, refining mechanics, absorbing the playbook, and adjusting to the speed of the NFL. Rushing either of them into the spotlight could do more harm than good. So, while one may stay and the other may be released or traded, the message remains the same. This is a developmental year. Flacco is mentor, not just a stopgap. Joe Flacco's role this season goes far beyond throwing spirals and making red zone reads. He's expected to be the quarterback whisperer in Cleveland, helping shape whoever the Browns decide to hold on to, be it Sanders or Gabriel. And Flacco, in his late 30s, understands the responsibility. He's embraced the leadership role and sees mentoring the rookies as part of his mission. But even he knows the Browns need clarity soon. Training camp reps are finite. The preseason window is brief, and the margin for error in the NFL is non-existent. Time to make a call. The Browns are now on the clock, not for the draft, but for a defining decision. Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel both bring promise. But the NFL doesn't reward potential. It rewards production. And with QB1 already unofficially named, the team must shift focus to who will be part of the future beyond Flacco. Lombardi's suggestion to cut one of the rookies isn't personal. It's strategic. "You cannot develop two young quarterbacks at the same time," he reiterated. "You've got to decide who the guy is and commit to him. That moment of decision is fast approaching." What's next for Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel? If Stefanski takes Lombardi's advice, the next few weeks could see either Shedeur Sanders or Dillon Gabriel looking for a new home. The Browns might attempt to stash one on the practice squad, trade one, or cut ties altogether. For Shedeur, the drive is emotional as well as professional. He wants to make his dad proud not because of shared blood, but because of earned success. For Gabriel, the challenge is technical, adapting his college style into an NFL-ready system and proving he's more than just a stat sheet hero. One thing is clear. Both quarterbacks have taken different paths to get here, but only one may have a path forward in Cleveland. Final thoughts. The reality of NFL competition. Training camp in the NFL isn't just about learning plays or running drills, it's about survival. The quarterback position, more than any other, demands ruthless clarity from a coaching staff. And Kevin Stefanski is being urged by seasoned voices like Michael Lombardi to make the hard call now, rather than later. Flacco is the present. One of the rookies could be the future. But unless the Browns want to stunt both of their developments, that future must start with a singular focus. For Shedeur Sanders, this moment represents both a professional challenge and a deeply personal journey. For Dillon Gabriel, it's about proving he belongs in a system that requires more than college accolades. As the 2025 season approaches, the Browns must do more than fill a depth chart. They must forge an identity. And that starts by deciding which rookie deserves the reps, the time, and the trust to lead them into 2026 and beyond.
When you talk about Bryce Young, the way they closed the season, finished 5-12, but it was the second half play of Bryce Young that has led to a lot of optimism for the Carolina Panthers heading into the 2025 season, particularly those last 3 games for Bryce Young, where he had 7 touchdowns, no interceptions to lead the NFL. I had spoke to Dave Canales throughout the offseason about how Bryce handled last year, obviously getting benched for Andy Dalton earlier in the year, but his mentality never changed. His leadership, the way he prepared, even though he was the backup, that resonated with his teammates. So when he took back over in the second half of the year and found some success, they won 5 games, obviously, to close the year. They also had 3 different leads in the fourth quarter. They went toe-to-toe with the Chiefs and with the Eagles, so built a lot of confidence and added a lot of credibility for Bryce in that locker room. And you see him here at practice. He's talking with the receivers, talking with his linemen, talking with other members of the defense, trying to show that leadership and build on what they had last year. Specifically on the field, I asked what led to the change and some of that success last year. Obviously, we talked about the mentality, and in speaking to people throughout the building, a lot of the success we saw last year was Bryce's confidence and the timing rhythm, getting through the second, the third, the fourth progressions, all the way through the checkdowns. Obviously, they're building these these concepts for individual plays, but you have to have the reps in order for practice, in game reps, to get to those secondary options, and Bryce Young felt comfortable with that as we head forward to 2025. As far as training camp goes, in talking to Coach Canales a little before practice, they had a great start to training camp, scaled back a little bit yesterday. They're expecting to fly around today. They'll be working on red zone. What they've been talking about is the energy, the effort, the culture that they've built here. They don't have fans. They're doing construction for a field house to have an indoor facility here, so they're bringing that juice themselves. They're feeding off one another. J.C. Horn, one of the linchpin in that. He talks on defense. He talks to the offense, really gets the practice going. So the Panthers 2025 training camp underway. There you see the quarterbacks, Bryce Young, Andy Dalton, and company. We'll have much more on the Panthers throughout the day.
A 4th and 1 single back set under center. Now Carolina's opting to go with a wild card here. 12 personnel and a tackle-eligible front line. 6 offensive linemen favoring the field side. You see this formation, you're thinking run front 9 times out of 10. So let's see if that's the case out of the huddle. The Panthers' surplus of weight up front is off to the strong side. Jatavion Sanders switch field motions pre-snap, and a steady hold from Atlanta's scheme defensively. Except for this. Jesse Bates rapid jumps the edge before the snap of the football. Bryce Young has literal milliseconds to process this prior to his dropback. A 6 front, 2 low, and a 3rd shell. You would likely assume it's a simple 3D pot blitz. But that's exactly what Atlanta wants him to think. Because turns out it's a disguised dial-up. 5-man blitz, 2 high roll, and 4 underneath with the weak side flat being in a rush to coverage principle. Bull rush the edge if it's run, then quick sync to your assignment if it's pass to provide yourself that leverage on the front line. Because what are the odds they actually go play action on 4th and 1 here? Turns out pretty high. A brilliantly drawn up mesh concept with a lineman in action and a pullback from Sanders in pass protection. He cuts back off snap to the edge. Bryce then abandons the rollout into space. And by that point, the mesh had already worked its magic.
So now a 4th down. Fake the handoff. Young, step and throw. End zone. Touchdown. Tommy Tremble. And Carolina converts.
He faces every time he hits the field. He was the first overall pick in 2023, and right out the gate, people started calling him a bust. Meanwhile, Stroud, the 2nd pick, benched him for Andy Dalton. That's brutal for a young QB trying to build confidence. But then he came back, the starting job he delivered. In the final 10 games, he completed 61.8% of his passes, threw 15 touchdowns to only 6 interceptions, and led 6 game-winning or game-tying drives. Even more impressively, that bounce back, it was real. Yet, it still wasn't enough. Despite that turnaround, criticism didn't stop. Yeah, being Bryce Young sucks. Because he's always in someone else's shadow, judged harshly despite his Discord server. In this server,
You know, I think we're building something special. And, you know, these guys, I mean, they're, you know, just an extremely good management team. And listen, we're just getting started. So we're just building momentum through this year. And, you know, it's just building and building and building. And I think, you know, we'll build in the next few years. So I'm pretty excited, to tell you the truth.
Great power comes with great responsibility. Great power comes with great responsibility. Great power comes with great responsibility.